Hi, I'm Richard Sellers, Vice President for Feed Regulation and Nutrition of the American Feed Industry Association. We're at the 2011 Liquid Feed Symposium, where I just made a presentation on a regulatory update, and we're in the trade show at the moment. I talked about the Food Safety Modernization Act, which was signed into law by President Obama on January 4th, and major pieces of that legislation come into effect over the next 36 months. I mentioned in particular the hazard identification and preventive control section that requires companies to establish some kind of hazard ID program and preventive controls for those. These rules will be written by FDA. The final rules will be published in July of next year, and companies need to have those provisions, an understanding of those provisions, as well as operationally have controls in place to meet the law. I mentioned a lot of different provisions in that about verification, about hazard ID, and a number of ways of doing that. And in particular, I talked about AFIA's Safe Feed, Safe Food certification program. That's one way of being in compliance with this law. We're working with FDA to try to write guidance documents for the industry to help them and to help FDA understand this law, in particular our industry, because the law actually governs food and feed safety, and there's some separations in there. Other provisions in the law include performance standards, in which FDA is required to write regulations regarding adulteration, tolerances for particular potential adulterants such as heavy metals, mycotoxins, even things like melamine, when in fact melamine is not a hazard reasonably likely to occur in most instances. The other provisions deal with how FDA is going to implement this law. In particular, Congress gave FDA the authorization to hire more than 4,000 new employees, but it remains to be seen whether Congress is going to appropriate the money, given the super committee is determining whether how to reduce the debt and where to cut funds. There's not a whole lot of money available. Also in that provision, or in that law, there are mandated inspection times of every 3 years for high-risk facilities and every 5 years for low-risk facilities. And FDA will define, when they put out their preventive control rules next July, what a high-risk and a low-risk facility is. So a lot of exciting things happen, a lot of challenging things, and we're urging our members to create work groups at their companies, and in particular have plans in place by the time the law is fully implemented, with the regulations going into place next July of 2012. Our own association has 5 working groups with over 50 member companies involved in writing guidances, commenting to the agency, meeting with the agency, and we believe companies should not wait until the rules come out and should be doing that as well. Some other areas I covered included the Farm Bill for next year. We know there's some deliberations taking place, but it's difficult to say what's going to happen with the Farm Bill until the Super Committee on Debt Reduction meets and decides how much discretionary spending they're going to cut and what will be available for farm programs. So we think that will all be in place by the end of the year, and Farm Bill discussions will proceed in earnest next year. I also talked about one of AFI's initiatives to work with the Commodities Future Trading Commission to close one of the loopholes we see in speculative trading that will, in essence, allow the marketplace to handle this type of trading more equitably, rather than large Wall Street banks entering into speculation and driving the marketplace in an artificial manner. So that once this loophole is closed, we believe the market forces of supply and demand will take over and more realistically control the marketplace. Right now we believe that many commodities, in particular corn and wheat and soybeans, and in particular gas and petroleum prices, are being driven by this speculative trading handled by a lot of number of Wall Street banks handling several $100 billion worth of assets from sources unknown. I also mentioned the antibiotic resistance and the veterinary feed directive. Congress has made a number of attempts to control the use of antibiotics in animal agriculture that are used in human medicine, saying that this is not safe, that it's causing resistance in humans, when in fact the scientific literature is a bit sketchy on that. But FDA's made a decision that use of animal drugs that are currently approved for growth promotion, feed efficiency, is no longer judicious use, and they want to see those types of uses moved over to preventive uses, therapeutic uses, by supplying data and other information to make that happen from a legal standpoint, as well as the likelihood of a veterinarian controlling those via provision that's in the law known as the Veterinary Feed Directive. The VFD we've had a number of issues with. We'd like to streamline that process. We think the agency's been listening to us. It's a process that's been in place for 15 years, and we hope that FDA will reach an agreement with the industry to streamline that and to make this a workable process so that we can preserve these drugs for future use.